House Reyne. House Reyne was the second power of the Westerlands, a first men line seated at Castamere, a subterranean stronghold built into mines rich with silver and gold. Their sigil, a red lion on silver, was a deliberate answer to the Lannister gold lion. Centuries of intermarriage with the Lannisters at Casterly Rock made the Reynes the wealthiest bannermen in the kingdom, and eventually a rival. Their fall in 261 AC became the most quoted cautionary tale in the Seven Kingdoms. Exploiting the weak rule of Tytos Lannister, the Reynes refused to repay their debts and openly defied his son Tywin. Tywin's response is the stuff of song. He destroyed their allies in House Tarbeck, then marched on Castamere. When the surviving Reynes retreated into the mines, Tywin had the entrances sealed and a river diverted into the tunnels. Every man, woman, and child of the line was drowned in the dark when the mines flooded, and the warning carried through the realm in 5 short verses titled The Rains of Castamere, a song Tywin would still be using to terrify his enemies decades later at the Red Wedding. House Tarbeck were the Reynes' partners in extinction in 261 AC. An ancient Westerlands house seated at Tarbeck Hall, their sigil bore a 7-pointed star on a field of silver and blue. Their alliance with the Reynes was sealed when the formidable Lady Ellen Reyne married the dim-witted Lord Walderan Tarbeck. The alliance lasted until Tywin Lannister returned from the Stepstones and set out to restore the authority of Casterly Rock. When Tywin demanded repayment of Lannister loans, Walderan resisted and was briefly imprisoned. Lady Ellen retaliated by taking Lannister hostages. Titus Lannister forced a settlement, but less than a year later, Tywin summoned the Reynes and Tarbecks to answer for their crimes. They rose in rebellion. Tywin marched on Tarbeck Hall, defeated Walderan's small force, and executed Walderan and his sons. Lady Ellen and her son Tion held the castle, but Tywin's siege engines brought the old keep crashing down on them. Tarbeck Hall was burned until only a blackened shell remained. By the end of the campaign, House Tarbeck was no more. House Toyne. House Toyne were a knightly family of the Stormlands, sworn to House Baratheon. Their sigil was a winged heart, black on gold, and their words were "Fly high, fly far." The downfall began in 178 AC. Sir Terence Toyne, a Kingsguard knight, was found in bed with Bethany Bracken, the chief mistress of Aegon the Unworthy. Aegon had Terence dismembered piece by piece in front of Bethany, who was then executed. Terence's brothers tried to assassinate the king in revenge and were cut down by Aemon the Dragon Knight, who they killed in the process. The surviving Toynes were stripped of their lands and exiled. The last branches scattered far and wide. Sir Miles Blackheart Toyne became Captain General of the Golden Company across the Narrow Sea. The last Toyne in Westeros, Simon Toyne, founded the outlaw band known as the Kingswood Brotherhood, and was killed in single combat by Sir Barristan Selmy in 281 AC. Across the Narrow Sea, after Miles died in 296 AC, House Toyne had no known surviving members. House Darklyn. For centuries, House Darklyn ruled Duskendale from the Dun Fort. They had been Dusk Kings of the First Men, bent the knee to Aegon the Conqueror, and then served the Targaryens with distinction. 7 Darklyns wore the white cloak, more than any other house in history. Their sigil honored them with 7 white shields on a red field, alongside black and gold diamonds. That run of honor ended in 277 AC. Lord Dennis wanted a royal charter granting Duskendale greater autonomy. Tywin Lannister, hand to Mad King Aerys, refused. Dennis invited Aerys to Duskendale to hear the petition, and seized him on arrival. Aerys spent 6 months as Dennis's captive while Tywin's army sat outside, knowing any assault would trigger the king's execution. The stalemate was broken by a young Sir Barristan Selmy, who slipped into the Dun Fort alone, killed the master-at-arms Sir Simon Hollard, and walked the king out alive. Dennis surrendered. But something had broken within Aerys during those 6 months, and his vengeance was operatic. Every single Darklyn was put to the sword. Lord Dennis's Myrish wife, Lady Sarala, the Lace Serpent, was mutilated before being burned alive. Duskendale survived, but the Darklyns did not. House Hollard. The Hollards were House Darklyn's closest bannermen. 3 Hollard women had wed Darklyn kings during the Age of Heroes, a memory preserved in their arms, 3 golden crowns on a blue chief above red and pink waves. Their ruin came in 277 AC during the Defiance of Duskendale. When Aerys was seized, Sir Simon Hollard cut down Sir Gawain Gaunt of the Kingsguard, while the squire Robin Hollard mocked the captive king. After Aerys was rescued, the Hollards were destroyed. Robin died on the rack. Sir John Hollard, steward of House Darklyn, died with his wife and young son, and the family's lands and honors were stripped away. Only one was spared. Dontos, the young son of Ser Steffon, who had died before the Defiance and taken no part in it. Aerys would have killed the boy too, but Ser Barristan asked for mercy. Dantos grew up at court and became a drunken knight, later reduced to a fool in King's Landing. In 301 AC, he helped smuggle Sansa Stark from the city after Joffrey's wedding, only to discover too late that he had been used by Peter Baelish. Once Sansa was aboard Baelish's ship, Dantos was killed by crossbowmen on Littlefinger's order. House Durrandon. For thousands of years, the Stormlands were ruled by the Storm Kings of House Durrandon. The house was founded by the legendary Durin Godsgrief, who married Elenay, daughter of the sea god and the goddess of the wind, before raising Storm's End in defiance of their wrath. Their banners, a crowned black stag on gold, flew over a realm stretching from Cape Wrath to the Bay of Crabs, and their words, "Ours is the fury," would outlive the family that first bore them. The Durrandons were warriors. They fought the children of the forest, the Andals, the River Kings, the Hoares, the Kings of the Reach, and survived them all. Their final king was Argilac the Arrogant. In 2 BC, when Aegon the Conqueror offered him peace through marriage, Argilac refused, mutilated the envoy, and rode out to fight at the last storm. He was unhorsed and slain by Orys Baratheon. Aegon awarded Storm's End to Orys, who married Argilac's daughter Argella, and adopted both her sigil and her words. The Durrandon name died with Argilac. House Hoare was one of the few royal dynasties in Westerosi history to be extinguished in a single night. The Hoares rose on Orkmont during the Andal invasion, deposed House Greyiron, and ruled as the Black Line. Their sigil tells you how far that reach extended at its peak. A gold longship for the Iron Islands, a green pine for Bear Island, red grapes for the Arbor, and a black raven for the Maesters of Oldtown, all bound by ironborn chains. Then came Harren the Black. 3 generations after Harwin Hardhand ripped the Riverlands from House Durrandon, Harren raised the largest castle ever built in Westeros, Harrenhal. By cosmic coincidence, or curse, his masons set the final stone on the very same day Aegon Targaryen's ships landed at the Blackwater. In the early months of 2 BC, the Riverlords joined Aegon and rose against Harren. Harren retreated inside his fortress. Aegon, atop Balerion, flew over the walls and incinerated Harren and every whoreson trapped inside. Only Harren's brother, the unnamed Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, survived, and he, bound by his vows, never raised a sword for his kin. House Gardener. The Reach had its own divine origin myth. House Gardener claimed descent from Garth Greenhand, the legendary High King of the First Men, whose son Garth the Gardener supposedly raised the first High Garden. Their sigil, a green hand on a white field, inspired the Order of the Green Hand. Their kings wore living crowns, vines and flowers in peacetime, iron thorns when they rode to war. For thousands of years, the Gardeners ruled the most fertile kingdom in Westeros. They warred with the Ironborn, the Storm Kings, Dornishmen, and the Kings of the Rock. They survived all of them. But they did not survive Aegon Targaryen. In 2 BC, the last Gardener king, Mern IX, joined Loren Lannister and marched a combined Westerlands Reach host that outnumbered the Targaryen army 5-1. The two armies met on a plain near Golden Grove in the northern Reach. The combined knights were beginning to break the Targaryen lines when Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys took to the air on Balerion, Vhagar, and Meraxes, the only battle in the Conquest where all 3 dragons fought together. By the time the dragonfire died down, 4,000 men had burned. The Order of the Green Hand had been wiped out, and Mern was dead, along with his sons, grandsons, brothers, uncles, cousins, and other kin. The Reach was passed to Highgarden's stewards, a previously minor cadet house named Tyrell. House Blackfyre. If Westeros has a defining extinct dynasty, it's House Blackfyre, the Targaryen cadet branch whose pretenders fought 5 rebellions over 70 years. The house was founded by Daemon Waters, King Aegon IV's bastard by Princess Dana, his own cousin, who was legitimized on Aegon's deathbed. Aegon gave Daemon the Valyrian sword Blackfyre, and Daemon took the sword's name. Their sigil, a black 3-headed dragon on red, was the Targaryen banner with the colors reversed. The wars came soon after. Daemon I died at the Battle of the Redgrass Field in 196 AC. His sons led the 2nd and 3rd rebellions, his grandson the 4th. Each was put down, but never finished, because the surviving Blackfyres always retreated across the narrow sea. Each pretender was backed by the Golden Company, which was founded by Aegor Bittersteel Rivers to one day put a Blackfyre on the Iron Throne. The fifth and final rebellion came in 260 AC. Meleys the Monstrous, a man so large he could kill a horse with a single punch, with a vestigial second head sprouting from his neck, landed on the stepstones at the head of the Band of Nine. A young Sir Barristan Selmy cut his way through the Golden Company and slew him. The male line ended there. The female line, readers of the books will note, is another matter entirely. House Casterly. House Casterly is the oldest extinction on this list. Long before the recorded histories, Casterly Rock, that vast gold-veined mountain on the western coast, was held by a First Men dynasty said to be the wealthiest house in Westeros. A huntsman named Corlos, son of Castor, tracked a lion to a den near what would become Lannisport. He killed the adult lions but spared the cubs, an act of mercy the old gods rewarded by revealing a vein of gold inside the cave. Corlos fortified the cave, which eventually became Casterly Rock itself. The Bard's version of their fall has them tricked out of their seat by Lan the Clever, who slathered himself in butter to squeeze through a crack in the rock, before convincing the Casterlys their home was haunted. Archmaester Peristan offered a more grounded theory, that Lan was a retainer who married a Casterly daughter and inherited the rock when her father died without sons. Either way, the Casterlys vanished from history. Lan the Clever's descendants took the gold, the lion, and the name. House Greystark was a cadet branch of the Starks of Winterfell, seated at the Wolf's Den, the fortress at the mouth of the White Knife River. For 5 centuries they held the castle as the most successful of the Stark offshoots, long enough to grow ambitious and covet their cousin's power. Around 1,000 years before Aegon's conquest, the Greystarks rose alongside House Bolton against their Winterfell kin. The Starks won, the Boltons survived, the Greystarks did not. The Kings of Winter wiped them out root and branch, and the Wolf's Den passed eventually to House Manderly. Of the Greystark sigil and words we know nothing. The house is preserved only as a cautionary footnote about Stark cadet branches that forget their place. House Mud was one of the most ancient and long-lived of the River Kings, a First Men dynasty that ruled the Trident for what Catelyn Stark recalls as 1,000 years before the Andals came, around 6000 BC. Their seat was a castle along the Blue Fork whose ruins are now known simply as Old Stones. Their sigil was a golden crown studded with emeralds on a red-brown field. Their greatest king, Christopher Mudd IV, aka the Hammer of Justice, fought 100 battles in his reign and won 99 of them. The single battle he lost was his last. His son Christopher the Last inherited the kingdom and a losing cause. The Andals overran the Riverlands in his reign, and his death ended the line. House Justman reunited the Riverlands after the Andals fractured them. Their founder, Benedict Rivers, was a bastard born of Blackwood and Bracken blood. Despised in youth, he became a knight of great renown, defeated petty king after petty king, and was finally acclaimed king of the Trident. His reputation for fairness earned him the name Benedict the Just, and gave the dynasty its name. Their sigil was golden scales on a white field, encircled by a double border of blue. For nearly 3 centuries, the Justmans held the Trident. Then came the Ironborn under King Cord Hoare. Cord captured the 3 sons of King Bernard Justman and murdered them at Pike, in what is now known as the Bloody Keep. Bernard sought vengeance but was outmatched by Cord's forces. He was sacrificed to the drowned god, and House Justman was extinguished entirely. The Riverlands fell into a century of anarchy. House Teague. A century after the fall of House Justman, an adventurer named Torrance Teague returned from raiding the Westerlands with a fortune large enough to hire a sellsword company. After 6 years of war, he crowned himself king of the rivers and the hills at Maidenpool. The Teague sigil, a golden trident on a black field, flew over the Trident for several generations. The Riverlords resented these foreign-funded upstarts, and the Teagues had to keep hostages at court to enforce loyalty. By the time of King Humphrey, that loyalty had run out. Houses Blackwood, Tully, and Vance, led by Lord Roderick Blackwood, secured the support of Storm King Arlen Durrandon III through marriage and met the Teagues at the Battle of the Six Kings around 400 BC. The fighting claimed the entire male line in a single day. House Coharis. The first house to inherit Harrenhal after Aegon's Dragonfire was a Valyrian one. In 2 AC, Aegon granted the cursed fortress to Sir Quentyn Coharis, the Master-at-Arms of Dragonstone. Quentyn married his daughter to Lord Edmund Tully of Riverrun to bind the new Riverlords to the new Lords of Harrenhal. The Coharis sigil, a flaming saltire flanked by 4 white skulls on a black field, was, in hindsight, a warning. In 37 AC, during the reign of King Aenys, Quentyn's grandson Lord Gargan, known mockingly as Gargan the Guest for imposing himself on his bannermen's hospitality and the beds of their wives, was murdered during the rebellion of Harren the Red. With this, the male line ended. House Harrenhal. Harrenhal passed next to Lord Lucas Harrenhal, whose daughter Alice had become Prince Maegor Targaryen's second wife in a scandalous Valyrian rite on Dragonstone. When Maegor seized the Iron Throne, Lucas was named Hand of the King. The end came in 44 AC. Alice gave birth to a stillborn, deformed child, and Maegor's third wife, Tiana of the Tower, convinced him Lord Lucas had sent men of proven fertility to her daughter's chamber. Maegor had Alice tortured to death, Lucas thrown from the roof of the Tower of the Hand, and every man, woman, and child with a drop of Harrenhal blood put to the sword. 4 years later, Tiana confessed she had poisoned the child herself. House Towers secured Harrenhal with blood and held it for less than a generation. Maegor announced the cursed castle would go to the strongest of his loyal knights. 23 knights fought openly in the streets of Lord Harrenhal's town. Sir Walton Towers won the melee and died of his wounds within a fortnight. His son Jordan held the castle through Maegor's mysterious death and yielded to Jaehaerys I, but the family's wealth was stripped. By 53 AC, the household at Harrenhal had been reduced to a cook and 3 aged men-at-arms. The last lord, Maegor Towers, inherited as a sickly child and lived out his short life in poverty in the Tower of Dread. He died in 61 AC, the last of his line. House Strong. The definitive doomed lords of Harrenhal arrived in 73 AC when Jaehaerys I granted the castle to Sir Bywin Strong. Their sigil, wavy stripes of blue, red, and green on white, represents the 3 forks of the Trident. For 3 generations the Strongs accumulated power. Lord Lionel became Hand of the King under Viserys I. His son Sir Harwin Breakbones was the rumored father of Princess Rhaenyra's 3 eldest sons. In 120 AC, both died together in a sudden fire at Harrenhal, attributed to Lionel's younger son Larys Clubfoot Strong, who inherited the moment the bodies cooled. Larys served on Aegon's Green Council during the Dance of the Dragons. In the books, when the war ended in 131 AC, Cregan Stark offered him the wall. He chose death instead. Curse of the castle or just bad luck? Let us know what you think in the comments. House Lothston came to Harrenhal under scandal. Lucas Lothston, grandson of a hedge knight, was elevated to the lordship in 151 AC because he married Felina Stokeworth, the king's former mistress. Their sigil, a black bat on a silver and gold field, was unsettling enough that other houses later refused to associate with it. Under Maekar, Lady Danelle Lothston turned to the black arts. Their former household knights, House Went, stormed Harrenhal. The line ended around 221 AC in fire. A century later, Brienne of Tarth carried a battered Lothston shield, until a captain in Duskendale warned her that the black bat was of ill repute and she had it repainted. House Went were knights who turned on their masters and were rewarded with a cursed castle. Their sigil, 9 black bats on a yellow field, was almost certainly an inheritance and rebuke of the single Lothston bat. Lady Manisa Went married Lord Hoster Tully of Riverrun, making her the maternal grandmother of Catelyn Stark. In 281 AC, House Went reached its height when Lord Walter Went hosted the Great Tourney at Harrenhal. Their final lady, Shella Went, occupied only the lower thirds of 2 of Harrenhal's 5 towers. During the War of the Five Kings, in 298 AC, she yielded the castle to Tywin Lannister. Harrenhal was lost. The Wents faded from history, leaving only bats, ghosts, and the curse that consumed every house before them. House Osgrey of Standfast was a remnant of one of the great fallen houses of the Reach, a decline that took centuries. The Osgreys had once been marshals of the North March under House Gardener, with Coldmoat as their greatest castle. But after the Targaryen Conquest and later the Blackfyre Rebellion, their lands were stripped away one by one. By 211 AC, they had dwindled to landed knights with a single tower house, Standfast. Their cadet branch at Leafy Lake, founded in better days to preserve the bloodline, was already extinct by the events of Duncan Egg's The Sworn Sword. By then, Sir Eustace Osgrey was the last of his kind. 3 sons dead on the Redgrass field for Daemon Blackfyre, a wife who had thrown herself from the top of Standfast on hearing the news, a daughter packed off to King's Landing as a hostage who became a silent sister and died in the Great Spring Sickness. If a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms covers the Sworn Sword in a future season, viewers will get a closer look at the Osgrey's slow decline. And that finishes our tour through every major extinct noble house of Westeros. Which fallen house deserves its own video? And if you enjoyed this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.